Good afternoon. I'm sex abuse attorney Jeff Herman. My law firm is Herman Law, and I announced this press conference to talk about a lawsuit that I filed yesterday against the Marriott Corporation, particularly this hotel, and Eddie Napleton and a guy named Pete Grinnell. This story and this case arises from a series of events that took place in this hotel within the past 6 months. There's a really horrific tale, ultimately resulting in a young woman allegedly being sexually assaulted by Eddie Napleton. Eddie Napleton, you may know of from the Napleton Automotive Group. He's the partner, part owner, manager, and officer, along with Pete Grinnell, who's also a partner, part owner, and manager of some of their dealerships. This case is about a corporate event that started at Morton's here in Palm Beach. My client worked for the company. A young woman was a corporate trainer, attended the corporate function. She had a couple drinks at dinner along with other employees and executives at the company. The last thing she remembers that night is being at Morton's and then waking up here at the Marriott Hotel naked in a bed full of fluids, knowing something bad happened to her. We now know through very good investigative work by the Palm Beach Sheriff's Department what happened that evening. We have surveillance video, we have police interviews, and here's what we know happened. On that evening, my client was taken from Morton's in an intoxicated state over to Rocco's Tacos by Pete Grinnell and Eddie Napleton. The two of them then brought her over to this Marriott hotel. She was intoxicated to the point where she was incoherent, barely conscious. Pete Grinnell calls the hotel and arranges to get a room for her. My client never checks in, never speaks to anybody at the hotel. She's literally carried into the hotel through a side door. At some point, they drop her on the floor. She's unable to walk, and the video evidence, as we allege, shows them dragging her by her feet into the room, unconscious. They put her in the room and they leave. At some point, my client apparently wakes up and tries to escape. Doesn't know where she's at. She makes it to the hallway and passes out again. A Marriott employee finds her on the hotel floor, passed out. Can't talk, incoherent, basically unconscious. They put her in a wheelchair and bring her down to the lobby of the hotel. In the lobby, they try to speak to her. She can't hold her head up. She can't speak. She doesn't know where she's at, and they don't know what happened to her. But they don't call the police. They don't call an ambulance. They leave her in this wheelchair in the lobby of the hotel until Pete Grinnell comes up and says, "Oh, put her back in the room." And they do it. They wheel her back to the room in her incoherent, unconscious state and drop her in the bed, and they leave her. At some point after that, Pete Grinnell comes back to the hotel desk and asks for a key to the room. According to the hotel staff, they said, well, he paid for the room, so we had to give it to him. Knowing they just put a woman there who is defenseless, is unconscious. No authorities are called. This is not her family member, yet they give him the key. Pete Grinnell then hands the key to Eddie Napleton. They walk to her room, and then video shows Eddie Napleton going into the room and staying there for several hours. We know from DNA evidence that my client, we believe, was sexually assaulted because they found Eddie Napleton's DNA in her vaginal area and her anal area. He's been arrested. He's been charged with crimes relating to this case. There were so many bad things that happened here and so many people involved that allowed this to happen that it's repugnant. Starting with, as we allege, Pete Grinnell conspired with Eddie Napleton to allow Eddie to go into this room with this woman who was clearly incapable of consenting. She was literally near death from her intoxicated state. And then the Marriott Hotel allows these men to drag this woman into a room, knowing she's in an intoxicated state. They take possession of her body and then they give her back to them. At some point, after Eddie goes into the room, the manager of the hotel decides he's a little concerned, he's alarmed by seeing men walking towards her room, so he goes to her hotel room, purportedly to do a wellness check. He puts his head to the door and he listens. And what he hears is ruffling of sheets. And as he says, well, he didn't want to interrupt what he thought might be going on. So he doesn't knock, he doesn't interrupt, and he doesn't save her from the sexual assault. So we've sued the Marriott, we've sued Eddie Napleton, we've sued Pete Grinnell. This is a civil case. There is a criminal case, I said, that's pending. This poor woman is destroyed. It is so horrific what happened to her that she is literally struggling to move on with her life. She's in very, very serious therapy. She's unable to really move on with her life right now. It's been, of course, very disruptive. And so we filed this case seeking her day in court and to obtain some measure of justice for her for the terrible things that we allege happened to her.
Maris Babcock with WPTV. Jeff, what do you think is the biggest piece of evidence against Edward Napleton in this case?
Well, we know of from the police reports and the DA's records is that there's video evidence of Pete and Eddie basically carrying her into the room in an unconscious state. She wasn't able to walk. And then when they find her in the hotel on the floor and they bring her down to the lobby in the wheelchair, she's obviously, and according to the hotel staff, in an incoherent state, is unable to even communicate, and she doesn't even know where she's at. And so the evidence is extremely strong as to her state. Everyone's already given statements to the police about how incoherent she was and basically unconscious, and yet they know they put her in the room and left her there. We also have video evidence of Pete Grinnell not only taking the key to the room, but then walking over it and handing it to Eddie Napleton. And then, of course, there's the video evidence of Eddie going into her room, and the DNA evidence they find of Eddie in her vagina and her anal area. And so there's several pieces of very strong evidence we think that will prove this case.
How did it make you feel when you heard that he was pleading not guilty to these criminal charges?
Well, you know, I let the criminal authorities take care of their case. My job is to represent her in the civil case. And so, you know, my job is to ensure that she has her day in court in the civil matter. You know, I can tell you from my client's perspective, it's frustrating for her knowing not only was he pleading guilty, but the Napleton Automotive Group made statements of support for Eddie Napleton immediately. You know, there's this evidence out there, and how this company, I mean, I get that he's the son of the grandson of the founder and the son of I guess the CEO right now. But my goodness, you know, there's such overwhelming evidence, and how they could immediately say he's innocent despite all this evidence out there is questionable to me.
Well, do you think the video evidence, do you think that blocks his attempts to say it was consensual? Is that what is important about that video evidence?
Well, it would, I mean, I guess he could say whatever he wants to say. What I will say this is the video evidence and the statements from the witnesses show that she was incoherent and was not able to consent. The last time we believe she had alcohol was clearly before she entered the room and before this alleged sexual assault took place. She did have a rape kit done. The next afternoon, at about 12 or 1 in the afternoon, her blood alcohol level was still about 0.077, which you extrapolate backwards, and my understanding from the experts is that would make her blood alcohol level at the time they put her into this room at about 0.35, which is, some people would be dead already. You know, she didn't die obviously, but she was clearly in a state. The police believed it strong enough to charge him with a crime relating to her being unable to consent.
So the incident report, I believe, was written up by the West Palm Beach Police Department. Earlier you said the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office
Oh, I could be wrong. It could have been, yeah. If I said that, if I might have mistaken about which department it was. I know the detective has been very active, and my client has been very pleased with the proper attention that she thinks the case has gotten.
So we talked about, obviously, what you guys feel a lot of people did wrong. Anyone watching this who may experience this in the future or has experienced this, what went right here? Why are we able to stand here today and bring this civil suit?
Yeah, so the big difference between this case and a lot of cases that frankly I get calls on every day is the video evidence. And, you know, oftentimes we don't have that. Most times we don't have that. And so in this case, there's a lot of it. And it really, you know, we can look back in time and watch what happened in this case. And so we know what happened. It's not a he said, she said. And that's the big difference in this case, because most times it is literally a he said, she said, and you have someone who was intoxicated, and you know it's hard to prove. Most of these cases we don't see criminally prosecuted because the burden of proof is very high. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. But obviously in this case, the state attorney felt it was strong enough. You know, that's their decision. But certainly in the civil case, I think it is overwhelming evidence, and my burden of proof in this case is just more likely than not. And so between the video evidence, the DNA evidence, and also importantly, the testimony from the employees of the Marriott Hotel who were there and have already given statements to the authorities. And so we have those.
How much will you be seeking?
This is a significant case. You know, ultimately I'll leave that to the jury. I believe this case is well into 8 figures, meaning well over 10 million and up. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in a case like this, because I believe we'll get punitive damages, to see a jury award upwards of $50 million. This is a serious case, it's a serious assault, and serious mistakes were made here.
Does she live? Where does she live?
She lives in South Florida.
Does she live in Palm Beach County?
I don't want to go further. She lives in South Florida. She lives in this area.
And you describe her as a corporate trainer. Did she work for Napleton? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she worked for Napleton Automotive Group, and this dinner was a dinner that was part of a 2-day corporate event they were having, a training program, which she was involved in. She was helped putting this together and was there for the next couple of days to train their managers they brought in from all over the country. And so, you know, she was a long time great employee there.
How long had she worked there?
For a period of years.
Sorry?
Years.
Years?
Years, a couple of years, I believe.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, one more time?
Eddie lives in Illinois?
Yes, I believe he lives in Illinois now.
Where in Illinois, do you know?
I don't know.
And why does he live there? Do they have dealerships up
The
there?
corporate headquarters is in Illinois.
Oh, I didn't know.
In
that.
Chicago area, I believe.
Okay. And Ramel has a weird name. He's known by Pete, but his real name is D. Frank.
Yeah, he goes by Pete.
But it's
Pete Grinnell.
P-E-E Frank.
Yes.
That is his.
That's
legal name.
that's what. Yeah.
And he has. It looks like from their website, he's the owner of dealership in Kissimmee.
I believe he's involved in a couple dealerships. I don't know the exact corporate structure, but he's they call a partner of the Napleton Automotive Group. I mean, I think the group itself owns about 70 or 80 dealerships, and I think they have different partners.
Okay. And what was Eddie's role? You said he was a partner, officer?
Eddie's with the corporate office. They hold him out as one of the, in charge of the day-to-day operations, I believe, of all the dealerships. He's, I believe, the number 2 guy at the company. There's his father, Ed Napleton, who's the top guy, and then there's Eddie, and he has siblings also who I understand are executives and officers with the company.
Have you checked his criminal background? Does he have any elsewhere in this country?
Not that I know of. Nothing significant.
Okay.
Where are you at in the case right now?
So we just filed it yesterday, and we will move forward with what we call discovery. I mean, I'll set depositions as quickly as possible and request documents, and of course we're very interested in getting all the records from the video surveillance, and we have some of the statements already. We have a lot of it already, actually, and so pretty good handle on this case.